Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Bold Predictions for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators rolling into 2025 from the people in the comment section. This is a really unique episode to do, and an episode that I'm really fired up to get into because, look, it ain't no secret. To the Florida fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of months, we've talked a lot about this program and kind of taking some bold takes and bold predictions from y'all in the comment section allows us to talk about this football team in a little bit of a different lens. It offers some talking points around this football team that we haven't really gotten into during the offseason. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And look, although I might not agree with every prediction that we're about to talk about, the amount of support and the amount of feedback that y'all put in the comment section, it is such a blast for me to pick through and kind of respond to. The amount of support's been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's start off with a prediction that I don't necessarily agree with, but not for the reasons you might expect. 5 wide receivers catching for over 500 receiving yards in the 2025 year. Now, look, the reason I disagree with this prediction has nothing to do with the capability of this wide receiver room. Because I look at guys like TJ Abrams or a guy like Aiden Mizell, a guy like Vernell Brown, maybe even a guy like Tank Hawkins. I think you got a lot of wide receivers that are capable of catching for over 500 yards in the SEC in 2025. The reason that I don't necessarily buy it or that I won't necessarily predict it is that I think your top 3 pass catchers are a little bit different. I think there is separation at the top of this wide receiver room for Florida. When I look at Dallas Wilson, when I look at J. Mike, and I look at Eugene Wilson, it's hard for me if these 3 cats are healthy for that throughout the 2025 year. It's hard for me to see a scenario where they're getting taken off the field all that much. I think Florida's going to try to run their passing attack through these 3 wide receivers. What I love about them, they all do a little bit of different things. You look at Dallas Wilson and J. Mike, those are your big body vertical pass catchers. Then you look at Eugene Wilson and what he can do underneath and what he can do yards after the catch wise. He's a guy that is certainly going to get utilized in a little bit of a different way. The guy we're not talking enough about is probably J. Michael Sturdivant. I feel like Dallas Wilson, look, is it a projection with Dallas Wilson? Yes. Do I feel confident making that projection with what we heard out of spring practice, what we saw with our 2 eyes during the spring game? Yeah, I feel good about projecting Dallas Wilson as being a top pass catcher for this football team. J. Michael Sturdivant. This is a guy that, because it was a little bit underwhelming from a production standpoint for him at UCLA, people are sleeping on this cat. This was a guy that, had he chosen to declare for the NFL draft, probably would have been a day 3 pick. And everything you hear out of this Florida program is, yeah, we have an NFL wide receiver on this offense in J. Michael Sturdivant. Then you got Eugene Wilson. The 4th wide receiver that I think could go over 500 yards is probably Vernell Brown. I think he's kind of like that carbon copy Eugene Wilson kind of wide receiver, operates from the slot. He's probably a more developed route runner than Eugene Wilson was going into his freshman year. I could see Florida trying to get him on the football field and utilize what he can do after the catch. And then I look at Aiden Mizell, and I look at a guy like Tank Hawkins. I look at, hey, that is some elite speed, some of the faster players in this conference. I think they're going to get on the football field. I think Florida's going to try to utilize all of these different skill sets in this wide receiver room, but I think the primary guys, you feel pretty good that it's going to be Dallas, J. Mike, and Eugene. Number 2, and this one I actually agree with, and I want to get into it a little bit more. Top 10 offense and a top 25 defense. This sums up my optimism around Florida. Like, not only is Florida the most talented roster that they've had in a very long time in terms of top-end talent, I also think it's the most complete roster we've seen in a very long time for Florida. That matters. There have been aspects of Florida teams in the past where they've been elite in certain categories, but they never seem to be that complete team. There always seemed to be that Achilles heel or that real problem on this roster. One of the things that separates Florida from years past is how complete they are. So when you start looking at, hey, can they have a top 10 offense? Can they have a top 25 defense? I think that is very much in the realm of possibility. And it's something that I almost would buy stock in going into 2025 because I look at both sides of the football and say, from a roster standpoint, I feel really confident about it. You look at the offense first. What stands out to me about the offense is three words come to mind. One, balance. I think they're going to be able to run the football. I think they're going to be able to throw the football. Number two, multidimensional. It's a lot of guys that offer different skill sets, especially in the passing attack. And number three, it's continuity. This is an offense that has played a lot of football together. There ain't a lot of colored names on the sheet. There's not a lot of newcomers that we expect to be difference makers. And it's because a lot of these guys have played a lot of football together over the last couple of years. That matters in this day and age of college football. In so many other programs, it's like a rotating door of talent. Not with Florida. Like, these guys have been in the same locker room and been in the same system for the last couple of years. When I look at Florida, how do you deal with all the things that they can do? Like, the multidimensionality of this offense is what stands out to me. Look, if you want to take care of what Florida can do in the passing attack, you probably have to leave your two safeties high, because Dallas Wilson and if you want to play with the single high safety, Dallas Wilson, J. Michael Sturtevant, with how well DJ Lagway pushes the ball down the field, that's going to be a problem. Well, if you want to leave your two safeties high, like, good luck trying to defend the run, especially as DJ Lagway is fully healthy. It can be utilized in the run game as well. People forget how good of an athlete DJ Lagway is. And if you want to deal with this Florida rushing attack with how good I think the offensive line is, with how good I think the running back room is, and DJ Lagway's ability to factor into the run game, going to be really difficult. It's kind of like a danged if you will, danged if you don't when it comes to stopping Florida's offense. Now, you look at the Florida Gators defense, and here's what I'll say. They were playing like a top 25 defense in the month of November. And that was mostly a very similar conversation. We don't see a lot of colored, especially with the starters. Like, they're pretty much running back that defense that they had in November, and they're running it back in 2025. The concern here is the interior of the defensive line. You know, especially when you play a team like Texas, when you play a team like Texas A&M, when you play a team like Georgia, you know, teams that are big, physical up front. Does Florida have the bodies to hold up in that middle of the defensive line? And I look at it and say, hey, we might need a really good year out of the linebackers. And that's not to say Caleb Banks is a bad football player. Y'all know how I feel about Caleb Banks. He might be the best interior defensive lineman that you see in the country. It's the other four. You know, it's like Jamari Lyons. Is he a guy that we are confident can play 40-plus snaps? Or Mackay going into year two? You know, Brandon Beck coming from Baylor. Not sure about the depth. So when you look at how do you make up for that, I think the edge room is absolutely elite for Florida. These linebackers, especially in the run department, are going to have to be good. I think they're good enough. They're going to have to be that in 2025 if Florida wants to be a top 25 defense. But I look at it and say, hey, you were playing like a top 25 defense. You hit the ground running in 2025 from what you were doing in November of 2024. It should be a top 25 defense in the country. Last prediction, Florida goes 9-3 and gets a college football playoff bid, and that requires us to open up the schedule for Florida. I broke it up into three sections, right? I broke it up into the first 4 games, the next 3 games, and the last 5 games. Number one, 9-3. I think that is very, very possible. In fact, that might be my prediction for Florida. When I will get into our official predictions in the month of August. But I look at this football team and say one thing that stands out. There's not a game that's highlighted in red. Right? There's not a game where in years past, Florida just didn't have the roster. You know, if they played their best football and a team like Georgia played their best football, there have been years where Florida just didn't have the firepower to deal with those teams. I'll look at this year and say if Florida plays their best football, which includes DJ Lagway playing the way that I think a lot of Florida fans expect him to play, there's not teams that you count Florida out from. And so when you first look at the 12 games on the schedule and say, look, Florida has a chance to win every single one of these football games, you know, especially with probably the best team on this schedule, Texas, they're coming home or coming to the swamp after a bye week. Let's break it up and kind of get into it. The first 4 games, you got to go 3-1. It ain't going to be easy because you got to go on the road to LSU. You got to go on the road to Miami. Here's what stands out to me about those first 4 games, particularly those two against LSU and Miami. Although you are on the road, these are September games. These are early season games. I have confidence that Florida can be a very good team in the month of September because of all the continuity and momentum that they built in the back half of 2024. I mean, you look at Miami and say, hey, you got a brand new quarterback in Carson Beck. You got a brand new defensive coordinator in Corey Heatherman. You got a brand new secondary full of transfer portal additions. I'm not saying Miami's going to be bad. They're going to have some things they got to figure out dang quick before they play Florida at the end of September. You say the same thing for LSU. Like, the coaching staff remains the same, but you look at LSU's roster and say it is riddled with transfer portal additions. Yeah, not saying LSU is going to be a bad football team. I think they have one of the best rosters in all of college football. Is it all going to come together on September 13th? That's a question you would ask. When you look at Florida, it's like, hey, we're running it back. You know, all these guys have played a lot of football together over the last couple of years. You feel confident that Florida hits the ground running, maybe better than some of these other teams on this schedule. Can you go 3-1? You get your bye week. You got 3 more games. Texas, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Mississippi State should be a win. Should be a pretty dang good win. Texas and Texas A&M got to win one of them. I look at that Texas matchup, you know, Arch Manning coming on the road to the Swamp, and if this team is 3-1 or 4-0, it's going to be a freaking movie. It's going to be one of, if not the most hostile environments we see in all of college football in the month of October. Arch Manning coming to the Swamp. Then you have Texas A&M. Can you win one out of them? You know, one out of 2 of them. I think you got a chance in both. I'd probably my lean might be, I shouldn't say that. I think you have a good chance for 2 different reasons. One, Texas A&M probably less good of a roster. You know, probably roster to roster, you might take Florida, but you're going on the road to College Station. Then you look at Texas. Look, Texas is really good, but you get them at home, and you probably have some momentum. And you're coming off a bye week. Got to go 2-1. So if you go 2-1, you're going into the month of November 5-2. That's when the schedule loosens up, gets a little bit lighter for Florida, right? You have Georgia neutral site. Look, I mean, Florida dang near was going to beat Georgia last year. Georgia has more questions than we've seen in the last 5 years about their roster. Not necessarily picking Florida to win that football game. I think you got a very good chance. You should run the table at the last 4 games. On the road at Kentucky, I don't care where you play Kentucky, Florida should be winning that football game. On the road at Ole Miss, look, Ole Miss, I am down on Ole Miss in 2025 because I look at Ole Miss and say, hey, what made them special in the 2024 year, they don't have that in 2025. They were one of, if not the best defensive lines in all of the SEC in the 2024 year. Nobody talks about it because Lane Kiffin's the head coach and Jackson Dart was one of the bigger names in college football. That Ole Miss team was really dang good because of their defensive line. They don't have nearly the defensive line that they have. So even if Austin Simmons, the new starting quarterback for Ole Miss, is as good as Jackson Dart, which is certainly a big if, I don't know if Ole Miss is going to be the same team this year. Even though you're going on the road, I like Florida there. Tennessee at home, feel good. I mean, like, Tennessee's guy, very similar to Ole Miss. Even if Tennessee gets quality quarterback play, which is a big if, can they run the football like they ran the football last year? Are they going to be as dominant on the defensive line as they were last year? It's not just the quarterback play with both Ole Miss and Tennessee. You have legitimate questions about their football team and what made them special in 2024. Florida State should beat them anywhere you play them. 9-3. Look, at 9-3 should get them to the playoffs. I don't know what the committee will do. I would be stunned because if you're talking 9-3, you're talking about a lot of really high quality wins on this roster with 3 not bad losses. We'll see if that's enough to get them in. I think 9-3 is very, very feasible for Florida. And I think it should get them into the college football playoffs. And what's exciting about that is, look, if Florida goes 9-3, they showed us they can bang with anybody in the country. And they'll be one of the most dangerous teams in all of the country entering the college football playoffs. We'll see if they get there. I think 9-3 should be good enough. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.